Today's drawing is the Grinch as a child wearing his favorite red sweater. To get started, we're going to draw the shape with a pencil, then go over the pencil lines with a black marker and color it with colored pencils. So in pencil, I'm going to just draw a generic shape for his head. We're going to make it a very long oval shape with a little bulge at the bottom for where his cheeks are, being pushed out by his Grinchy smile. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're drawing a child or anybody that you want to look younger is that the eyes should sit a little bit below the halfway point of their head. So if we're dividing the Grinch's head in half from top to bottom, his eyes should measure a little bit below the halfway point. The Grinch's hair is so fun. The very top of it curls up into a cute little curlicue. It's like he's trying to assimilate into the Who fashion. The directional lines on the side indicate that his hair on the side kind of curls under and downward. Okay, so remember that this Grinch is tilting his head and looking over a little bit. He's not looking directly at you. So that means that his eyes and his nose and this shape that I'm drawing around his nose are going to be a little bit off center. And that's to kind of show his directional movement on his head. We want to make his eyebrows furrowed, and the Grinch has very long eyebrows that curl up into the most magnificent eyebrow curl. Okay, so his smile is very mischievous. We're going to do the top line with just a barely slight curve. The bottom line will indicate his lower lip, but remember to curl the corners into that mischievous smile. Don't forget too, he has cute dimples, so that needs to be drawn in. And then we can refine his eyes. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but he has a very small pupil. And his iris is a very light green. So it adds to his look of mischievousness. But you want to make sure that your eyes are both looking in the same direction. This Grinch, at first, I don't like the way that I draw one of his eyes. So we're just going to erase it. We're going to refine it and push his eye over out towards the side. It's a little bit too close to the center line, so we're pushing it out towards the side of his head, and that will show that he's looking straight at us with his eyes. Probably one of my favorite things about this Grinch child is his huge tooth. I was looking at the way that he was created on the movie, and he has almost one big giant tooth in front. So I'm not even going to separate it into two big buck teeth. I'm just going to do one big tooth. And as you refine the shape of his lip, you can erase any lines that get in your way from seeing the detail you want. Okay, so now we can draw the oversized eyelashes, typical to Whoville, the skin fold above the eye, and I'm going to just double check that this eye is roughly the same shape and size as the other. What I'm going to do is use the length of my pencil to help me measure. So you measure off a little spot of your pencil, carry the width over to the other side, and I'm already noticing that I need to move his iris over a little bit. And that's going to help in getting them as close to the same size as possible. I always adjust my lines as I go. It's totally normal and okay for you to adjust as well. If you notice that something you drew just isn't quite right, erase it and make it the size you want. At this point, my drawing is starting to look like a Grinch, and it's starting to look like maybe he's almost finished. Essentially now, I'm just deciding which lines I want to keep. I'm doing darker pencil lines for my own reference, so I'll know which ones I want to draw, or which ones I want to go over with the black marker. And there's no exact rhyme or reason to it. You can use your own artistic intuition to decide where you want his hairs to go. Which hairs do you want to keep? Which ones do you like better? And then as you finish off the directional lines of the hair, remember to just kind of curve them under so that they imitate hair and not just some really jagged grass. I think it's worth mentioning here that as you go through and you darken the lines that you want to keep and erase the lines that you are getting rid of, that your picture is going to start to take on a different look. It'll no longer look like a artistic sketch. It's going to start looking like a cartoon. And that might be something you like. It might be something that you dislike. So if as you draw this, if you just like the look of the pencil drawing, then you can stop there. You don't have to outline it in black, but we're going for a little more of a caricature look. And we're going to make it look a little bit like a cartoon. So let's talk colored pencils. You can use whatever brand you like. You can go as simple as Praying, Crayola, Crazy Art. I'm using Prismacolors because I like how smooth they are. And so the color here that I'm using to fill in everything is Chartreuse. It's basically a lime green. And the goal right now is just to completely cover everything, all the white that exists in his fur and his skin, and make it all the lightest green possible. And then we're going to go darker from there. So we're starting off with our lightest color, and then we're going to go in with another darker shade of green and going to start shading everything in. This one is called Lime Peel. And I'm using lime peel, which again is essentially just like a darker lime green color. I'm using it to just kind of push back what I want to recede into space and then to bring other parts forward. So for example, his eyes, the eye socket themselves, they need to recede back into space. His furrowed eyebrow parts, those need to stay light because they are more bulbous, and so they need to come forward in space. So you're just going to use your slightly darker version of lime green to push back and to shade different parts of his hair. Again, this takes a little bit of practice just to kind of get down what needs to be darkened, what needs to stay light. When you are trying to make that eye pop and stay green, just use a pinch of dark green on the very outside of the eye. That'll create this luminescent look, and it'll keep his eye looking like the lime green color that it is. Also, I'm not even sure if the Grinch has a green nose, but I liked it better than black. And then this one is just a very dark green. I think it's like pine green. And just going over everything to, again, push things further back into space. If you are working with some colored pencils that are very basic, just a 10 color or, just something simple, you could shade his face with just one color of green. All you'd have to do is press very lightly to start and then go over it with a heavier hand. So then you would just push darker on the spots that you want to shade. I just think when you use different shades of green with different tints of gray in it, then it gives an added level of sophistication to your drawing. And it also just creates a little bit more depth to it. His eyebrows create some forehead lines, and so you can remember that when you're shading. The lines themselves create some shadow. So we're just adding some more depth to it there. Also, when the light hits the hair, it's going to create an entire conglomerate of shadows, and you're just going to create the illusion that his hair has light hitting it. But then you're also going to go throughout the whole face and kind of flesh it out and make sure that if you are using different shades of green, that overall, he has this overall look of the same green. We don't want it to look like he's rubbed a bunch of green paint just on his chin and then the rest of his face is that chartreuse color, If I could go back and change one thing about my coloring skills, it would be that I added a little bit more mid-tone green on his nose because it would match his chin better. But let's move forward. Okay, so just a regular old red. You're going to press lightly to fill in his collar. And then you can go a little bit darker on his shoulders. I chose a red color for his sweater because on the scene where he's making an ornament for Martha, smashing all of his lovely family heirlooms, he's wearing a really cute hand-knit sweater. I imagine it's hand-knit. It just is really cute. These lines on his collar represent rows of knitting. So I am shading one side and kind of going dark, blending it into the light. Going to the next line, starting dark, going light. That way it creates the illusion that from line to line, there's a little rounded bump. Another thing to keep in mind too, as you are coloring his sweater, is that his head is sitting on top of the sweater, so it should definitely be darker around his cheeks and underneath his chin. We're also going to hit that white shirt with some darker colors to show that it has some cast shadows from his chin and cheeks. Okay, so adding red to red, I'm taking Crimson Lake and just making some even darker shaded areas. This is helping the collar to stand out, and I'm going to use it to try to create a bit of a cast shadow underneath his cheek here. And because it broke, I decided to move on to the shirt. So again, creating cast shadows. I'm using a light blue and putting in most of the coloring and shading right underneath his chin. This taupe color is also just helping to achieve the look of it being cast shadow. And I like it because it kind of creates a little grunge look to his shirt. I like to believe that the Grinch wouldn't ever wear a properly washed shirt to school. This violet is my favorite to use for shadows. I use it on any color, red sweater, white shirt, green face. You can use the violet to make shadows on any of those surfaces. I reflect back on something a college professor told me, that to tie any picture together, you have to have a unifying color. This portrait of the Grinch has a green face, a red sweater, a dirty shirt, and this violet is going to unify all of those colors together. Plus, it's just really pretty, and it offsets his gorgeous green eyes. Flesh tones. Use flesh tones on his lips. It's going to make him feel like a real person. Offset those flesh tones with a really dark green. I'm using dark green on his upper lip too. And his teeth should not be this white. We're going to use the same taupe we used in the shirt to make his eyes a little bit darker and to make his teeth a little bit darker. Again, because that one front tooth is so far in front of the rest, you can make those back teeth just a little bit darker. For the empty space below his teeth, I'm using the same violet that I used everywhere else. And I'm also adding in some other Grinch colors. So dark green and red. The inside of everybody's mouth, Grinch included, is red. So that's going to poke through the darker colors.